A new season has arrived in World of Tanks console with new tanks, new UI elements, balance changes, and bug fixes. Let's get in the news and check it all out. The new season is named Valiant, and there's an obvious reason for that. The Tier 5 Valiant tank is the poster child for the season. It's unlocked at level 25 on the paid pass. Here are its statistics. I will show these for all the new tanks and highlight the stats I see noteworthy. And if you want to read them all, feel free to pause the video. It's a beefy slow tank with above average HP for Tier 5 mediums at 600, and a base 4-second reload for 110 alpha, meaning it'll dish out some damage while being able to take more than your typical Tier 5. Notably too, it has 12.5 degrees of gun depression. Another new tank would be that of the Cat TB Thumper Era 3 tank destroyer, which actually has me excited. There's only one other tank destroyer at Era 3, so having another is quite nice. This one unlocks at level 100 on the paid pass. Here are the stats, and the first thing I notice is the 65% silver bonus. Quite good, especially since you won't need to fire premium rounds in this tank. The standard rounds are the highest penning rounds in the game with 854 pen, while the heat premium rounds drops the pen to 750, and heat, as Cold War players tell me, become useless after Era 1. So no need to fire that premium. The highest standard pen in the game and a high silver bonus seems to be a tank to make easy silver with. It also has 3750 HP, which is way higher than the Type 89, which is the other Era 3 tank destroyer, meaning this is most likely higher in the era. It goes fast, but in Cold War what doesn't, and it has 9 degrees of gun depression. .33 accuracy is pretty good too, as I presume it can't get vert stabs as a tank destroyer. And 700 alpha isn't the highest, as the MBT-70 has 750 with its 155mm, but this is a 140mm, so that makes some sense. And there's another new tank. The Ultimate Pass tank is a Tier 10 British medium tank, the Centurion AVRE. This thing has some interesting statistics. 2100 HP is in line with the Iron Arnie, which means yet another high HP medium at Tier 10. But it's fairly slow, with 12.2 power to weight, meaning it'll struggle to get to that top speed of 48 that it has. It says 10 degrees of gun depression, but as you can see from the model, it has some obvious obstructions to that gun depression over the front of the tank, meaning to make use of the 10 degrees, you have to be peeking over the side of your tank, which honestly is a good thing because this thing has a 165mm derp gun. It gets 2 Hesh rounds, one with 185 pen and 1400 alpha, and the other with 240 pen but only 1100 alpha. It's a scary looking gun, and the reload isn't too long for an alpha like that, with 26 seconds base. .42 accuracy is honestly not terrible for a derp gun, but looking at the equipment available to the tank in-game, it cannot run vert stabs. Of course, the shell speeds are low too, and the view range is a respectable 400 meters. These last two tanks that we mentioned also have some skins for them in a bundle for 3,900 gold. Here's what they look like. Three new tanks isn't all. Here's the rest of the rewards, which include the British Tier 8 heavy tank, the Carnarvon Action 10, at level 100 on the free pass, and the Chinese Tier 8 medium tank, the 59 Patton, at level 75 on the paid pass. Changes were made to the XP required for the recurring point challenge from 4,500 XP to 4,000, and 3 weekly challenges had their points increased from 4 to 5. This is because the season is back to a normal 8-week length, rather than the 10 weeks last season was. There's also a year-long resolution event that starts with this season, but I'll be going over that in a separate video with my own speculation and more in-depth thoughts so that this video isn't too long. Oh, and also, don't forget to pick up your Valiant Season Starter Pack in the store. Moving along from the Season Pass, we have UI and other in-game improvements. I'll be going over things that are big-ticket items in my eyes, and not the tiny things like font styles and color treatments that we'll all barely notice or not care about. I will leave the article in the description, however, if you're interested in reading every detail there. Firstly, we have the old hangar garage making a return. The camera will now rotate around the tank rather than the tank rotating itself, and we have 3 levels of zoom again. The old garage is staying as an optional garage for players, but retains its static camera position with no zoom levels. In addition to that, they have added a larger experience bar that displays the XP values, or for elite tanks, the convertible XP value. The tank icons in the tank rail at the bottom has changed as well. With some layout changes, the best change though in my eyes is that the flag went from being behind the tank name to actually being behind the tank again. They removed the buy slot card, which I don't know where you can buy a slot now for silver, because when clicking on the vacant slots, you are brought to the tech tree. So I presume when you're out of slots and go to buy a tank, they will charge you for silver then. But I do not know. For the in-game HUD, they have removed the target tracker box for when you aimed at an enemy. Now all the information that was exclusive to that box will be shown above the tank you're aiming at or below your reticle. If you've played before, it basically means the old way that Eagle Eye would do it. This is a nice change, as it means you don't have to shift your eyes away from the battle to see what modules you've damaged. I am surprised they kept it this way and didn't bring back Eagle Eye as a perk though. I am not saying that I would have preferred it that way, but I'm just saying that I was surprised they didn't go that route to say that they added or brought back another perk, you know? Lastly, your damage color has changed too. Instead of your damage being red, it is now yellow, making it easier to tell when you did the damage yourself. Up next, we actually have some artillery matchmaking changes. They have adjusted the matchmaker for arties to limit the number of arties per team based on the number of players in the queue. That means if there's fewer than 100 people in the queue, tier 5 and above, the game will try to limit the arty per team to 2 or less. But if there's 100 or more players in the queue, then they will allow 3 arty per team to get games rolling out. They will also be monitoring this change so that this may not be the final form of this matchmaking. On to balance changes. There's only one change in World War II, and that's that they gave the Object 430 a new 122mm gun. I'll probably make another video on this as well, but here are the in-game statistics of the gun for you to look at. It's got 7.6 seconds reload, which is, for 122mm, sounds insane. But this is only a 390 alpha variant of a 122. It also has APCR premium, 5 degrees of gun depression, and 0.4 accuracy. It's quite an interesting look, and the first Russian medium with 390 alpha at tier 10. The rest of the balance changes are to Cold War tanks, and again I'm going to highlight the ones I deem the most noteworthy. I will be upfront and tell you that I do not play Cold War, and so I do not know the impact that this will have on some of the tanks. But there are tanks I know were just held down, and those tanks got some decent buffs here. Immediately, the list starts with a reverse speed buff to the Era 1 4005, which people have been calling for a nerf on for a while now, so it's very interesting to see that it got a buff here instead. You may not think reverse speed buffs are anything, but this thing is fast as it is going forward, and they're buffing the reverse speed by 8, which is pretty significant for retreating into cover from a sniping position when getting shot at. It is not nothing. Some G.I. Joe tank buffs here and there, some Abrams buffs, some M60 buffs, some light tank buffs, and then a buff that I'm interested in, the M103 in Era 2. The armor profile of this tank matched that of the Era 1 tank, which matched that of the Tier 9 tank, so seeing an armor buff on this tank is really nice for it being in Era 2. But that's not all. They increased its view range, accuracy, and alpha from 450 to 530. They nerfed its reload to compensate, however. They buffed the T95 E3's terrain resistances, which is okay, I suppose, and then they also buffed the NM116 with aim time, accuracy, dispersion during movement and rotation, and also terrain resistances. Things I don't think it needed after it was already buffed a while back, but it seems overused tanks get unnecessary buffs most of the time. Back to buffs I liked seeing though, is the Conqueror and the Chieftain Mark V getting alpha buffs. The Conqueror and the Mark II variant, that is the premium version, went from 400 alpha to 510, and the Chieftain went from 470 to 530, which matches the recently released premium tank, which just felt like power creep. But now that they match in alpha, the only difference between them is speed. The Conqueror and the Conqueror Mark II Premium, for that matter, were tanks that had their Tier 9 armor profiles while also having Tier 9 alphas too in Era 2, where everything is increased. The Conquerors also getting armor buffs helps a lot too. Those are the big changes to me, bringing those tanks up to the standards of Era 2, and that took them long enough if you ask me. If you want to read the rest of the changes, because there are a lot to look at, the link will be in the description of the video. Last important note is that Halfia Pass has been removed from World War II, which to me is just a sigh of relief, as I really didn't think that map was balanced for it. And Assault has been removed on a handful of maps for both modes, hopefully meaning I see less of Assault altogether. For World War II, they removed Assault on Malinovka, Steppes, Heilbronn, El Alamein, Vineyards, and Pearl River. Assault, however, remains on maps like Erlenberg, Thietval Ridge, Arctic Region, Fisherman's Bay, Karelia, Nomahan, Overlord, Pilsen, Kaunas, and Prokhorovka. That's a lot of maps. For Cold War, they removed Assault on Heilbronn, El Alamein, Kaunas, Kaobang, and Fredvang. This is a good chunk of maps, but honestly, El Alamein could have stayed in World War II while they removed more problematic ones like Thietval Ridge and Arctic Region. Maybe we'll get more assaults removed, but for now, I'm happy with this. There are smaller changes listed at the bottom, like new icons for training missions and custom games and such, but those are the major additions and changes that the new Valiant season brought to the game. Overall, I like what we got, and I'm excited to dive in. Expect a video on the year-long resolution soon, and maybe some reviews of the new tanks. I'm even excited to hop into Cold War with the buffs on the Abrams line and the new Thumper tank. And that ends my first news video on the channel. Let me know if you've enjoyed, and if you're happy with the new season changes down below. With that said, I'll see you in the next one. Time to go hop into some tanks. Take care.